one thing that's not often discussed in pagan circles, that not that I see, is um, the dynamics of belief in a pantheon versus dynamics of belief in a singular god, and how is that different? What are why would you believe in a bunch of gods, some of whom are quite dangerous and represent some pretty dark stuff? Now, why would you believe in that versus a set of gods, or excuse me, a god, a single god who is perfect, who's universal, who is omniscient and ever present, and all of these things that sound so wonderful? Like, how could you possibly make an argument against that? Because it's like being on the wrong team, or like hedging your bets. Like, that's what it might appear like that to people who are you know are monotheists, or look at this in a simplistic light. So a pantheon gives you access potentially to all of reality, all of the things that the natural forces that come into play in our universe. If there's something you want to deal with, you can either go through the one God who's um, at war essentially with some sort of demonic thing, um, some force that's trying to unseat him or something like that. Or you can treat the entire universe as being represented by different divinities that are um, simply doing natural things. What we do with those things, we can look at each of the gods and see how the essential materials that they're working with, how our psychology can twist that into something that's dangerous and toxic. We can see that each of these forces can turn that way. But if you have a single god, and this god is everything that's perfect and can do no wrong, and this goes back to like Aristotle. Actually, the Aristotle was a critic of the way the gods were portrayed. That he thought that the gods should be portrayed as perfect, and that any kind of debauchery or perfidy or any of these things that were depicted as being part of Zeus, the things that he did, that you shouldn't depict the gods that way, because the gods were perfect, and they had to be represent perfect morality, versus something that acknowledges that there is no necessarily a perfect morality, that we're not entirely looking for a God to be the perfect example of everything we need to do at all times. That's kind of infantilizing, where you're like, you need an example to be made for you, versus a a cosmogenic type of look, a view of divinity, where these forces are functional, and all of the forces, all of the gods, they all went in their contributing towards the continued creation of the universe, which never stopped. It wasn't just like somebody created a long time ago and it's done, and this is it, like a clockmaker. It's being created constantly. It's not something that just happened and a big bang and then it's here. It's being created constantly. So we need to be able to access the cosmogenic forces that brought it into being in the first place. So this is a much more naturalistic view of divinity. It doesn't beg morality. It doesn't spell out to you your actions. You need to figure that out yourself. It's not amoral, and it's not unethical. Those things are things that come out of the cosmogenic forces. The natural law of how things work creates morality, and it creates ethics, and the universe is moral, and the universe is ethical, and you don't need to be prescribed exactly what to do. The mythology gives you seminal stories that have driven our species through time immemorial. I mean, we are ancient. We're always trying to figure out, there was some time when we turned into humans, and before that we were knuckle dragging idiots that had no idea what the hell was going on here. We couldn't make tools, we couldn't make art, we couldn't do anything. We were just, shoving things in our mouths, and sometimes we'd die because it was the wrong thing. That's not us. We've never been that. We can be pretty damn stupid, but we're not any less stupid than we are now. In many ways, we've regressed because we're not in nature, and we don't have that wisdom. And where natural law is an abstraction to people in this time. It's not something that's being, you can still try and stick your hand in a fire and see what happens. You can, not get enough food for the winter. There's all sorts of ways you can figure out, to avoid, to still get the consequences that you need to find natural law. But largely, for like several thousand years, the Roman Empire itself was took the place of the tribalism, a lot of very natural things, like there would be food distribution by the emperor. There was an underclass of people who were indigent in the Roman Empire. They had a unemployed or sickly, the class of people who could not work. And they would riot on a regular basis if the government didn't give them enough food or enough entertainment. So this was something that was desired by the emperor and the ruling class, because then they could use it against the middle class and against the lower nobility. They could get a rioting mob to go and kick the asses of people who actually have a little bit of power and influence. Sound familiar? So this is very old stuff. The getting people away from natural law and natural consequences is it's a feature of humanity. We keep doing it. We can be compassionate and such without turning us into little slaves of the state, and that's been going on forever. But that's sort of a digression from the overall picture here, which is that this pantheonistic idea is very much based in natural law. It's not prescriptive in the way that we've gotten used to, that religion, that's how it functions in the modern times with monotheistic religions, some far worse than others. So this is my opinion about this. I think it's one of the most important things about paganism in the modern day is that it is rooted in natural law, and it's rooted in this idea of a pantheon, and it's not prescriptive in the same way. It's has everything to do with the hearth and the home, and it has a very strong polarity between the masculine forces and the feminine forces. And I'll get into that in a lot of other videos. I've already done several on that.